You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hi there. My friend Jennifer Bulbrook and I have a very special message to share with you today. So, if you are pressing play on this episode, I want you to know how much we both honor and appreciate you for doing so. Because if you saw the title, you certainly realize this is going to be a very weighty topic. Let me give you just a little backstory on how this came together. For me, it started with an internal nudge that I need to talk about the one thing that it seems no one ever wants to discuss. And that is losing a loved one to AIDS. I lost my dad over 20 years ago. And it's something that I've never brought forward until today. Something I've never before shined a light on. Something that was so devastating and deeply painful. So layer on the loss of my dad with there being a lot of judgment and stigma around the manner of death. And I've just been sitting with this secret for half of my life. In fact, I used to refer to losing him as losing my light. And I've been getting these nudges. First, just to talk about it at all. Then, to post in a private Facebook group, to seek someone to come on this podcast and talk about it with me, because it seemed far too difficult to do alone. Then going through the mind drama that came with putting that post out there in a group of a couple of thousand. Maybe I should retract it. Maybe I should delete my post, seeking a connection on something so taboo. It is still such a taboo topic. So I revisited my post with the intention of deleting it altogether. I literally was letting my brain talk me out of it. I went back, and there were a couple of comments. One was from Jennifer. She lost her dad to AIDS also. And her response was something along the lines of, yes, we need to talk about this. I'm all in. Let's do it. And when we connected a couple of weeks later for this conversation, I wasn't even sure we would record it. But once we started what I refer to as our story share, it felt right for both of us. One thing that she did share with me before we started recording was the mind drama that she went through in responding to the post I was having second thoughts about putting up in the first place. It's crazy what happens within our brains when we just leave them to their own devices. Seriously, they are sometimes toddlers that need adult supervision, and sometimes we need to trust our intuitive nudges and our spirit guides and the whispers that come to us over the logical mind. That is how this episode came to be. We both have had to navigate and eventually override all of the emotions that come up with being so real and raw and vulnerable. And even then, even after we bared our souls to each other the day that we recorded this, I remember telling her afterward that I wasn't sure yet when I would publish it. It felt so right to have the conversation, to share our stories, but when would I feel comfortable enough to put this out in the world? I remember I said that maybe I'll wait until after the holidays. I caught myself rationalizing that no one wants to hear this topic now. And she said, well, maybe putting this out there over the holidays can open the door for some families to have their own conversations when they gather. Yeah. Me sitting on this and waiting for the perfect time isn't going to help anyone. Then the synchronicities and their corresponding nudges just kept coming all the way up to today. I was putting off even listening back to this episode. I was debating on what alternative topic I could do this week instead. And today is the day that I would have had to come up with something else if I was still going to sit on this one. And so it happened that the first thing I saw when I checked my phone this morning was a message from Jennifer that said, I just realized it's World AIDS Day. And that is all she needed to say. She left it at that because she knew what I would have to do with that. And I'm doing it for both of us and for everyone else out there who has been touched by this pandemic that no one ever talks about anymore. The irony is, or maybe it's another synchronicity, we actually talked about the fact that World AIDS Day sneaks up on us every year. That was the hit that I got when I read her message this morning, and I'm sure that's what she was thinking when she sent it to me, remembering that we had talked about this very thing, and here we are again. There is no better time than right now to have this conversation. There is no better time than right now to start some shit and keep it going. I'm publishing out of my normal window, a day early and during a random time, but it's going to be out there today so we can enter this particular arena of pure vulnerability. We are both as ready for this as we can possibly ever be. So yes, this is a story share between two humans who have been deeply touched by losing loved ones to AIDS. There will be sniffles, quivering voices, there will be tears. This is unedited. This is truth. This is, as both Jennifer and I have come to understand, necessary. Thank you for listening. Welcome, my friend Jennifer, to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. What lights you up, my friend?
Helping people, going deeper into questions and finding the different paths one question can take you. And just honestly, just helping others and sharing my story and being able to show people what is actual possible out there.
Yeah,
sure.
What is possible? That is so good. What is possible? I'm just going to sit with that for a quick second because we are getting ready to dive in to a deep topic, a different topic, a topic that people tend to avoid. And that is having lost someone that you love to AIDS. And we have both experienced this. And for me, my share is that it was it was the 90s. It was the 90s for me that it happened. And I remember the stigma was so palpable. It was just so real and so palpable, and thinking that you can't tell anyone how this person died. You can't. You're not allowed. Because why? Why is that? Why are we not allowed to talk about this anymore? Or ever, not anymore, ever.
Yeah, it's, you had that experience where my experience was very well in the public eye. My father contracted HIV and Hep C, as well as my uncle, through the blood transfusions.
Mm-hmm.
And that became very public and very known. And I think that the focus wasn't so much on the disease, it was so much focused on this lawsuit and what happened to these individuals, but it wasn't so much talked about the actual disease.
Mm-hmm.
And even to this day, I don't hear many people talk about it. It's kind of like under the surface. Like, I don't know, like, when did it ever be like, okay, not to talk about something so important? I don't know. Because to me, talking about it saves lives and it will educate people.
Mm-hmm.
And to even this day, I know that people are not educated on the subject. People will sit there and be like, oh, wait a minute, your dad, was HIV positive and your sister was born after that. So that means your sister has it and your mom has it. And it's like, no, that's not how it just works.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to educate them. And it's like, why are we now in 2021 and still having to educate about the basic facts about something that should be known to pretty much everybody, just like cancer? We all know everything about cancer. We know symptoms, we know, treatments, we know this, we know that. Like, it's a part of our daily lives, whether we live with it or not. Mm-hmm. So why don't we know the same thing about HIV or AIDS?
Yeah. Well, you and I had a very brief conversation before we started pressing record on this particular thing, but it's like, can you recall what you said to me about cancer versus AIDS? It was, cancer is something that happens to you.
Yeah, cancer, I think a lot of it for people is cancer is something that you get. Cancer happens to you, mm-hmm. where a lot of people figure AIDS and HIV is something you go and get. Yeah. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons why people don't talk about it. And it's so hush, hush. Mm-hmm. Because number one, if you have it, you don't want people thinking that. Mm-hmm. And then there's those people who just believe that. Mm-hmm. And it's an uncomfortable situation. And again, it's all about being educated. And
yeah, it's like, well, if you have contracted AIDS, you brought it on yourself.
Right.
It's like just an automatic reaction. You brought it on yourself. And you're talking about blood transfusions is, how that was introduced into your family. Mm-hmm. And, and I remember very early on in the process of understanding AIDS, that when the first blood transfusion was encountered or understood, that you could contract it in ways other than sexual transmission, mm-hmm. then it seemed like there was a small shift, but it's not even, but not as big. Like you said, with cancer, it's like, oh, it's widely accepted. You are a victim. We will help you. If you have AIDS, we don't want to come near you.
No, you're not looked at the same. Definitely not. You're definitely looked at somebody who went and got this. Mm-hmm. You went and you did this to yourself. Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize is that no, they didn't. Like, whether they got it through a transfusion or whether it's sex or whatever the case may be, these people didn't go out and be like, yeah, let me go, get AIDS today. Like they didn't go and get it themselves. And
Mhm.
people have to have some kind of compassion. And that's what I think is lacking, is education and compassion. Like you have so much compassion and education for those who are suffering and who are, beating cancer and who are dying of cancer and all of their families. But where is it for those with HIV or AIDS? I barely hear about it. Like you said, once that lawsuit came up, I heard about it. We were in the media a lot. It was
Mhm.
talked about a lot, but it wasn't so much the actual disease.
Mhm.
And it was just so much stigma and stuff around it. It was just, and even once that was done, I haven't heard about it ever. I barely ever hear about it. I don't hear about it in the news. I don't hear about it in the paper. I barely hear about people talking about it. And some people may say, well, that's a good thing. Maybe it's not, affecting people but I say bullshit. It's still affecting millions of people.
Exactly.
Just because we're not talking about it doesn't mean that it's not affecting people.
Yeah.
My dad's gone and it still affects me.
Mhm.
I still have work that I've been working on because of growing up knowing my dad is going to die of a disease that nobody wants to talk about. Like, and
Mhm.
people don't understand that. And even
Mhm.
to this day, like I'll have like friends or whatever, and they'll say comments about, AIDS and stuff. And it's just like, I'm right here, but they don't even like, it doesn't even cross their mind. But
Mm.
if it was something to do with AIDS or, with cancer or whatever, then they'd be like a little more compassionate and they wouldn't be joking around or making these insultive like jokes.
Yeah.
But it's okay to do that with AIDS. Why?
Right. Tell me about your dad as a
I,
human, as a human.
my dad was an amazing, amazing man. He had so much strength and courage. He never ever let his illnesses or let the family, like he was surrounded by death since day one, and he like day that he was born, and he never let that grab him and take it and say, this is how your life's going to be. He took his life and said, this is how it's going to be. And he showed me like just so much strength and courage, and he was always there for his family, always there for his friends. He would just light up whenever he saw his first grandson. Like he was so
Mm.
happy that because he never thought he would be alive for it. So when that happened, he was like, hell yeah.
Oh
When
my
he
God.
got to be at, his son's wedding, and he never thought he would make any of our weddings. So he was like, fuck yeah. Like he
Mhm.
embraced those moments so much more because he didn't think he was going to have them. And he showed us like, it's not about what we have, it's about who we have, and it's about what we have inside. Like 100%. He was an absolute amazing man, and anybody who didn't get to meet him, I pity them, because my dad, he changed a lot of lives, so many lives.
I'm crying. Okay, so you can collect yourself as you as you just shared that while I try to think about that very same spirit that I knew as well. Um, for me, my dad um, married my mom when I was like 4-ish, I think. And so he later adopted me when I was around 10. So he became my father legally, although my birth father is still living. Um, I lost him at 54. And when I hear you talking about the spirit of your dad just living his life, that really and truly is what it was all about for mine as well. It was very much, I mean, very much about how can I just get the most out of this life that I can with the time that I have here. For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. So that is what I truly believe. And I kind of alluded to this again before we started recording this conversation. I truly believe that's what he came here to teach me, or that soul of his came here to teach me, is how to just enjoy this life. He didn't have much. Mine did not. I mean, like in terms of the societal trappings of, we want the nice house and the nice car and the nice things. I mean, he lived very simply, yet he lived with so much passion. So I think that that's what we can look at. To your point, Jennifer, the human behind that stigma, behind that label. There's an entire human that is also surrounded by an entire family that loves that human, right? I mean, it's like all of these tentacles, they're out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not an easy conversation to have. We're like
Definitely
jumping
not.
right in. We're jumping right in and we're both crying. It's ridiculous.
It's definitely not an easy conversation, but it's one that needs to be had. And I think it's one that needs to be out there, and it needs to be had not just by us,
Right.
but by so many people. And like I said, like my dad's illness and my mental health, I think in a way had gone hand in hand in some areas. And if I would have known what I know now, I think things would have turned out differently. And I think my dad was trying to kind of guide me in that way, but without really knowing how to guide me in that way. But he always embraced life and embraced anybody that came into his circle. He welcomed anybody, and he just made sure that you felt welcomed. He would, do these little amazing race weekends and survivor weekends for his friends and that, because he would say, like, why not? Like, why not? Like, let's do it. Let's have fun. Let's bring community. Let's bring, love. And that's what my dad was all about. And he didn't let the stigmas and the negativities and all the backlash that he got, because he got a lot of it, especially being in the public eye. There are signs left on our front lawn: Bulbrook has AIDS, stay away. Like, people, like our neighbor was like telling their kids, do not hang out with them, like their family's infested with AIDS. Like, we went through some pretty shitty things, and my dad was like, screw it, I'm gonna fight back. And he didn't fight back one-on-one. He went to the press and he wrote an article, and he was like, this is what's happening in our community, guys, and this is the facts. And and unfortunately, since my dad's passed, I don't see anyone else doing that. Nobody's talking about it. But I know that stigma is still there. I know those ignorant neighbors are still around the corner, but you just don't hear from it anymore. And like I said, like, I know people are like, well, you don't hear about it, so maybe it's hush hush, but hush hush doesn't mean it's not there. So how do we get it where we can still talk about it and where it's not uncomfortable for everybody? And why is it so uncomfortable for people?
It's fallen off the news cycle. It is so uncomfortable for people. It's not, I mean, again, the media, of course, decides what is important to, to feed us. And at some point, it was important to feed us that message that AIDS was, in fact, a disease of the sinners, right? That it was a disease of morality. To your point, they sought it out. They brought it on themselves, that kind of thing. Whereas cancer is more of a, oh, I'm so sorry, you're a victim, yet losing a loved one to this disease, I can tell you, is, I don't know about cancer, but from everything that I've seen and heard, I don't think it is any easier or different, there is a definite impact in terms of what it does to your body, right?
Yep.
What it does to, but what it does, it's like there's an extra layer of what it does to your psyche as well, because you are in fact shunned and alone and, you know, isolated. And then as a family as well, it's something you just do not discuss at all. So what did your dad tell me about your dad's position in terms of, you said that he, you know, he went to the press, he, you know, he made a lot of noise about it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, he was one of the people who headed the entire lawsuit against the Red Cross and that for this blood transfusions.
Mhm.
And he wrote for the newspaper so many articles with respect to his own story, with respect to just the disease itself, with respect to the family, just putting it out there any way he can. He wanted people to know. He went to schools and he went inside and he did speeches and talked about his story, talked about AIDS, talked about the symptoms, talked
Mhm.
about the facts that nobody else wanted to talk about.
Mhm.
And he did that to the day he couldn't anymore, to the day he went in the hospital.
Mhm.
He was there, he was frontline. Like I have a book of articles that he written, plus how many interviews he did and news interviews. And he was just such a remarkable human. And he wasn't just doing it because of his own self. He ended up being introduced into this community of so many people, millions of people that were that had this disease, and he was fighting for them too. And I believe that even if my dad didn't have it, he would have sat there fighting for them, because that's just who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always willing to do what was right. And for him, whether he was going to get the backlash or not, he wanted to speak about it. He always asked our permission. Is it okay that I do this? Because he knew that we would get backlash too. And we did.
Mm-hmm.
We had so many prank calls and stuff, so many signs on our lawn, like just so many different things happened. And not once did me, my brother, my sister, my mom ever say, no, stop. We were always like, keep going, like, get it out there, say your word, get it out there, because everybody needs to know the truth about this disease, not what they think they know.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they think they know is usually wrong. And that's where the hush hush is coming in. So let's educate and get it out there and let the people know it's okay to talk about it. There's no shame in talking about it. None at all.
Right. Right. Tell me about the signs in the lawn. You mentioned it a couple of times now. Like, what kind of things would they say?
Like, yeah, it was like we had one morning, we woke up and my parents were taking my sister to the bus stop, and they had opened the door and there was a sign right there. It was like one of those like presidential kind of signs, and it just said, Bulbrook has AIDS, stay away.
Mm-hmm.
And there was times where we had a neighbor and he was telling his kids, do not play with their kids.
Yeah.
And we had one neighbor who kicked our dog in the head because he belonged to us. And it was just like, I was in school once and I remember a girl yelling out, whatever, at least my dad doesn't have AIDS and fucks prostitutes. And it's like, buddy, like, just get the story straight at least. Like, and it was just, yeah, like, and it was just, that's the way it was back then. Mm-hmm. And I want to say it's not like that now, but I don't know, because I don't ever hear about it. I don't think it's because it's not happening. Right. Because back then, if it wasn't for my dad, I wasn't talking about it. Mm-hmm. So if I wasn't talking about it as a little girl, what other little girls that are dealing with this aren't talking about it, or little boys or wives or mm-hmm. sisters or whatever? Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's tons. Mm-hmm. just because my dad was like, yeah, but my dad was kind of thrown in this public eye and was like, and he went and he did it. But not everybody has that option.
Mhm.
Not everybody is, brave enough or has the strength or even want to do that
Right.
because, and that's fine. But we have to somehow get it out there so that people can help these other little girls and boys and siblings and all that who are dealing with this disease within their family, because it doesn't just affect that person who's infected, it affects everybody around them. It
Mhm.
really does. It's just like cancer. The cancer patient, its effects, but it affects everybody else around them too.
Yeah. Yeah. How old were you when you were going through that, like, with classmates
That
and
was
that kind of
elementary school,
okay.
was really, it was, yeah, I would probably say grade 5 to grade 8 was really difficult.
Mm,
High school kind of was an up and down thing, but I had a lot of, like, my mental health issues really came hard in high school. So I wasn't in school a lot. I was in the hospital a lot and stuff.
mhm.
But even when I would go back to school, I remember hearing the rumors like,
Yeah.
oh, and all of a sudden I had AIDS, and it was like, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
I guess, because I took some time off school, I have AIDS. Like, all right, like, but that's just the way it goes. And
Mhm.
and I don't think now it's gotten any easier. If anything, I think things have gotten worse, but people are just still not talking about it.
They aren't.
And if they're not talking about it,
Yeah.
then they're keeping it all inside. And
Mhm.
that means that they are struggling. And I want them to know it's okay. Like, you have people you can talk to. There are groups out there that are just for HIV, AIDS, and you don't have to let people know. It's anonymous. Like,
Mhm.
there's helplines, you know what I mean? Like, reach out to one of us. Like, you're not alone. And I
Mhm.
think so many people think that they are,
Mhm.
and they don't want to talk about it because of the big stigmas and stuff around it. And so many are hush, hush.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, just the fact that you had signs put in your yard, or that you were told that, don't interact with these kids because they, I mean, don't touch them. It's so sad. And to your point, it is just pure ignorance. It is just ignorance. And that is not meant in a derogatory
No.
way. I mean, when you are ignorant, you simply are unaware, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Uneducated.
uneducated, unaware, unknowing,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So ignorance is not, I'm not using it in a derogatory
No.
term, and I know you aren't either. It's just, it can be so frustrating for those of us who have, gone through this with a loved one, to really process all of it and understand, especially the stigma. And I remember I did, um my son is 13. He was, it was, oh my gosh, a good, my dad had been gone for a good 10 years before our son was introduced into our lives. But, we used to run 5Ks together all the time when he was little, when he was like 5, 6, 7, because he was just so full of energy. And I
Mhm.
was just thinking, so I would sign us up for every 5K that I could come across. And, and that would include an AIDS run walk, kind of thing too. And I remember one that I was taking him to, and and I'm going to tell you, Jennifer, it wasn't that I was necessarily trying to explain to him everything at the age of around 6, 7, whatever he was at the time, as much as I was just exposing to the different lifestyles. And I also thought, well, when he gets around this energy, I'm telling you, with the rainbow flags and, all of that, it's just, the energy is very welcoming, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. But when you're driving up to that place, and people are holding their signs, and he did. I remember very clearly, he looked over at me at about 7, and he said, "Mom, what's stigma? What does that mean?" because one of the signs said in the stigma. And I had such a hard time explaining that to him. I was just like, I just burst into tears.
Yeah.
I already am just reliving that. But I was like, how do I explain to a 7-year-old
Mhm.
what that really looks like? Because as you and I know, it is very deep, very painful, very real, raw, visceral, all of those things. How do you explain that to a 7-year-old who sees it on a sign saying in the stigma? It's like, I don't understand. What even is that? Mm,
Yeah.
I don't know. Why do we still do that? We can ask why all day. But I think what is the answer? Like, what is the answer? Again, back to what did these souls come into our lives to teach us about ourselves and about what we can carry forward to honor their lives and their experience? What can we do to support that? Do we scream about it all the time? Do we post about it on social media all the time? I mean, again, it's like that's because that's what happens. That's the world we're living in these days. The world that we're living in is like, oh, you're angry about something, you want to get the word out, hit hit the social media circuit,
Yeah.
say it, that kind of thing. Put yourself
Mhm.
out there, be vulnerable, be real. Yeah. Then what?
Yeah. That's the thing, right? You can do that, but then what?
Right. Then what?
Like
Then
it's been done.
yeah.
It was done years ago, and then what?
Mm-hmm. Mm. And then what? No one's talking about it anymore,
Yeah.
to your point.
Yeah.
And that's what hit me a couple of weeks ago. For some reason, it just was like a swell up in my sacral and just saying, why are we not discussing this anymore? I lived in Kentucky most of my life before I moved here to Dallas 5 years ago. And in Kentucky, seemed to be honest. This is what's so crazy. It was a lot easier to find volunteer associations. I know there are some here. I know there are. I mean, I'm in Dallas. I'm sure there are. However, it isn't as easy in terms of community, right?
Mhm.
Like, because when we get into these larger cities, that's where it's like, okay, well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I can search the internet. I don't know what I'm getting, and I don't know who I'm really supporting, and I don't know who I'm really helping. Whereas when I was in the Lexington area and when I was, supporting these 5K runs, and when I was doing, oh my gosh, we did yoga at a brewery, so we would do yoga and then have a beer afterward, which I'm not a big beer person, but it still felt good after that kind of thing. But it was donation based, and I knew I was supporting, and I knew the people, and and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So it was like, now it feels a bit anonymous. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are there things in your area? I know you're in Ontario. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I see with my dad, like he was a part of, the Hamilton AIDS Network and the Ontario AIDS Network.
Hmm.
And we had a community where, yeah, like I just remember like AIDS and HIV was just so part of my life that it was just always around. And now it's like, it's just not. There's a few people that, I have remained friends with and kept in touch with and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's not like it was.
Hmm.
And I'm just as guilty about it because I'm not talking about it either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why am I not talking about it either? Because my dad's now gone and it's like it's still here, it still exists, and it's
Hmm.
still a part of my life because it's still part of my memories and part of some of my thoughts and things that I'm still working on as a human.
Hmm.
And so, but why am I not really discussing it? And why do I not ever bring it up to people? Again, it's the big why. But then it's like, well, what happens afterwards? Because I feel like we've talked and we had so much talk, and then nothing really came about it. Because we don't hear about it. We hear about it, like, honestly, it's horrible to say, but like AIDS walks, I don't even hear about them anymore.
Yeah.
I don't hear about an AIDS walk. I remember growing up and I would hear about the AIDS walk all the friggin' time.
Yeah.
And now for the last, I don't know how many years, the last good 8 years, I don't even hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why the hell not? Why don't we, like, World's AIDS Day? Like, it's not a big uproar and like a big talk like other things. Why not? It's like sometimes it's like the day of, and then it's like, oh shit, yeah.
Yes.
Why is that like that now? It never used to be. So why is it like that now?
If Facebook reminds me it's World AIDS Day, then I'm like, oh yeah. Like that's it. Otherwise it's like, well, but then you also, maybe we can ask ourselves, is it incumbent upon us to be connected to, back to what I was saying, to the communities locally, right? That we know, because I didn't know like about the AIDS walks or runs that I was doing until I was connected with friends that actually like worked in that area, that volunteer thing. And I mean, I'm doing it as a means of honoring not just my dad, and I don't mean to just like, I mean, he was everything to me, but all of the souls that have been pulled into that and have died in a way that, or have left this world in a way that was less than, oh God, what's the word even? With hardly any support.
Less than kind, for sure. Yeah.
Like just in such a difficult, challenging way, to just be taken in that way. And when I say taken, I'm not talking about like the death itself, but I'm talking about like everything leading up to that. The don't touch that person, don't be near that person kind of thing. All of that. It's just so difficult and challenging. So I appreciate you saying that it's like, wait a minute, I know this isn't gone. I'm right with you. This isn't gone. It's just not someone, it's just for some reason no longer important. Yet we still have, it's not important enough to talk about. It's not important enough to be, talked about on the news cycle as much as cancer is. It's not supported in so many ways, because again, back to what you started out with saying, it's like, well, cancer is something that happens to you and AIDS is something that you go and acquire.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the word, acquired immune deficiency syndrome.
Yeah.
It's in the fucking acronym.
Yeah.
Acquired.
Right? Yeah.
Jesus. That just hit me like a ton of bricks, just saying that. Wow. So let's talk about the mental health aspect of it. Did your dad get support mental health wise? And I want to talk about yours as well, because I think that's a really big factor, and maybe part of what led you on your current path. But I'll let you tell your story in that regard. Mental health, did he take care of his mental health along the way?
He definitely took care of himself. He definitely went and sought support whenever he needed. He was very I need to take care of me so I can take care of my family.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that if he didn't take care of him, that he wouldn't be able to be there for us. So he always made sure that he took care of his health, whether it was the physical or the mental,
Mm-hmm.
like always.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing I can say about my father, is like he used to always say, like, because I was horrible with taking care of my mental health. I never was taking my medication properly. And he was always like, if I didn't take my medication, for my AIDS, I'd be dead. He
Mm-hmm.
goes, and that's how I look at it when he takes his mental, his medication for his, mental health. And I was like, yeah, I looked at it that way, but it was just like, I could just, but yeah, he definitely was always about taking care, because he knew what was on the other side. He knew that if you don't take it, you're not going to be here. And he
Mm-hmm.
wanted to live. I didn't, but he did. And that's what kills me, because at the time I didn't want to live, and he did. He wasn't here and I was.
Yeah. I really resonate with that. Oh my God, that is something that I completely resonate with. I identify with that. How much my dad loved life, and how much I wanted to exit. Yeah. So I think sometimes when I reflect that, on that specifically, I reflect on that specifically, thinking about because you can't ever get an answer. You can, throw your hands up in the air and scream to the sky, why did this happen? I think that it is so very helpful to look at the best parts of your experience that you had, what you were able to come away with, how you were able to be stronger as a result. Um, it's so hard to go back, and that's why I try to tread so carefully having this conversation with you. It's probably one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had, because I'm getting emotional too, thinking about just what you are saying, just those experiences, just that I didn't want to live, but this beautiful soul did, and he wasn't that was taken from him, right.
Yeah.
So why
Yeah.
well we're not going to get the answer to that, but I think that if we can take the approach of gratitude, right? Like, I really try to sink into that, especially when I get in my low moments. I try to sink into that, because our minds can easily go back to the hardest parts,
Yeah.
like the stigma, like the signs, not just the ones that were left in your yard, but the ones that were carried on the street leading up to the walks. And then the fact that there aren't any walks anymore. And why does nobody even talk about this? So we can
Right.
think about the injustices of it all. We can think about how difficult that it is. Um, we can wonder. We can be curious about um, why so many other things socially are being brought to the surface right now, and why this one is still taboo. You know, and nothing. I mean, all of the things need to come to the surface. I'm absolutely here for all of the things that need to come to the surface. And I'm also kind of still waiting for this. At the same time, we can get really, what helps me is to get really simple and basic with it. and say, okay, this happens. And I lost one of the most beautiful people I have ever known in my life. However, did I really? Right? Did I really lose? Because we tend to think about death as a finality. And I'm going to share something that I am just feeling called to share in this moment. Okay. The first Father's Day without him, I drove for 2 hours. I just got this compulsion. I just freaked out. I needed to be near him. And for some reason, I thought that being near him meant I needed to drive to his gravesite. And it was 2 hours away. And I did that. And I threw myself on the ground and I cried and I screamed and I did all of those things. But then I realized in doing all of that, when I came away, I was like, I didn't need to give up half my day and 2 hours there and whatever time I spent there, plus the time to return back home. I only did that one time. And then that's when I realized I was like, this is not, I did not feel his spirit at that gravesite as much as I felt his spirit when I was standing at my kitchen sink doing dishes.
Yeah.
And I realized that I could channel that anytime, anywhere that I was. And I never did that again. So I think that's part of the grief process. And I've been questioned, why do you never go to the gravesite? And I'm like, because that's not where he is. It's not where he is for me. No, I don't need, because I don't need that.
Yeah.
I did it once and I realized that his essence, his soul essence is with me whenever I want to channel it.
I can
It's there.
talk to him whenever I need to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to go to the gravesite
Mm-hmm.
because he's with me. He's within my thoughts. And that's what matters to me. And that's what I think keeps me from going. Because I know, just like you, a gravesite doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that I know he is with me because I have all my memories and my thoughts.
Yeah.
And I still talk to him whenever I need.
And that's it. That's another beautiful thing that I have learned, and I'm sure you have learned on your path as well, is that we can still continue a relationship with those who are no longer living.
Yes.
We can still continue that relationship and we can choose how we want that to be. And it can be the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It can be the most beautiful thing. And I think that for me, I just want to say to that spirit, nothing more than I love you unconditionally. And that's it. And I always did. I always have. You never had to hide who you are or who you were. And it's just like such a lesson, I think, for all of us when no matter, and this is another part of the stigma, is no matter the method of contraction, it doesn't matter. It is it is what it is, and there is this idea that it is a disease of sinners, or what have you. Again, it's a moral, it's a moral thing, and it doesn't need to be that way. And we can't force morality on people. We can't.
No.
We can't. We can't. And we can't force compassion
No.
on people.
No.
We can't. We can wish all day long that people would simply be accepting no matter what, and simply see the humans for who they are and the beautiful parts of them. But that's not always the case. And I think that, like, the only thing that I regret from my dad is that he did not get to live in his authenticity. He did not get to be himself. And the biggest thing of that I take away from that is, God damn it, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be myself, right? I will not try to conform to who you want me to be.
Yeah.
Because why? Why? What do I get from what do I get from that? I mean, seriously, what do I get from that? And I know that sounds selfish, but what do I get from that? Being who you want me to be.
Yeah.
You being society, not you,
Yeah.
Jennifer.
No, yeah.
We're both sitting here like, just wiping our tears, but yeah. So I think that, just to bring it back around, it's such a heavy, weighty topic. But for me, my takeaway from this is, what are the lessons? What have we learned? And it doesn't have to be so much about, I miss the walks. The walks were great. The walks are amazing. I miss them. It also doesn't have to be about that. There could be other ways that we can support if we, cannot necessarily take the time, or or dedicate the time and the energy to it.
Yeah.
What can we dedicate the time and the energy to? What can we do?
Yeah.
And even if that just means donating online or whatever, we're just,
Even just putting a post and talking about it.
yeah. We're recording a podcast
Yeah.
episode, which I think this is what's happening right now. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have a conversation, but let's record it just for funsies and see what happens. And we
Yeah.
might just have to share it. And, I don't know. I'm feeling like that might be a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just saying, you know what? Here's what I love about the things that we as coaches have come through, and have learned through our practices, is that every human being is worthy, period. You were born worthy, and you are still worthy, no matter what you've done, no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what. And sometimes, I'm not going to lie, sometimes I can look at other humans and I can say, I'm not sure about this one. Is this one really worthy? I don't know. Because yes, sometimes I get back, I get in my own space, and I need to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Because while we're sitting here having this conversation about, the stigma of AIDS, and losing our dads, and that kind of thing, in the grief process, and the and trying to heal from it, and all of that, I have to be brutally honest with myself and say, well, can I honestly say I don't maybe get a little judgy
Mhm.
with some other people out there.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the thing I think we
yeah.
all do because it's a human thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I'm willing to change it and work on
Yeah.
changing it.
Yeah.
And I know now that when I do notice myself doing it, I talk to myself and be like, no, like, this isn't what you want to do. Like, they are just as worthy as you are. We're
Mm-hmm.
all worthy, like you said. Doesn't matter what we did, didn't do, say, didn't say. We were born worthy. And like you said, there are times where I question that. You know, somebody did something that I'm just like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, they made that choice, or maybe they're sick, or whatever the case may be. Who are we to judge them?
Nobody. Yeah, we don't have that. We are not that righteous. None
No.
of us are. None of us are so righteous that we can stand on our pedestal and say that we're better than anyone else. And I think that again, it's just like what is flowing through me right now as I'm thinking about this entire context. It's like, okay, we're coming on here to try to explain, try to share the ways in which um, other humans um, should be able to live their lives out in a way that is not stigmatized, is not demonized, is not, all of those things. And for some reason, as I was saying that, I had this hit that I'm like, oh, but where might you have done that yesterday? I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
I think I might have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily in a blanket way, but just, let's just get really simple with this. I did get an invitation, a group, a join this Facebook group invitation, which I get a lot of them, and you probably do too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, 90% of them I'm just gonna, because I'm already in 900 Facebook groups. But I got one this morning that, based on the description, is completely probably gonna trigger me and gonna be a completely different experience than I might want to have. But it is from my neighbor, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe, maybe I can check it out, right? I mean, what's wrong with just seeing someone else's perspective? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with having a conversation about it, someone else's experience that does not align with your values and your beliefs and your everything? What's wrong with seeking to understand a little bit more?
Mhm.
Right.
Being curious onto where they're coming from,
Right. Right.
because you can learn so much just to explore somebody else's perspective.
Hmm.
You can
Yeah,
learn so much about your own self,
exactly.
and people don't realize that.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's that's what I was thinking. I was like, as soon as I saw that, I knew, I pretty much knew where it was going to go. I mean, again, it's just something that was obviously just created.
Yeah.
Not obviously, but it was, what I saw. I got the invitation. I went to look, and I'm like, oh, there's like two posts. It's, it just spun up a few hours ago.
Mhm.
But I thought about it. And you know what, Jennifer? Actually, I did do that early. I gave it a couple of hours, but I went ahead and accepted that because I said, you know what? Yeah. I mean, I've had conversations with this person. I'm like, um, and we've debated and we've argued, and then we've hugged it out at the end. I mean, like, I know this person
Mhm.
already. Like, I know this person. So I'm not willing to write him off and say, um, well, you don't believe what I believe, so therefore go fuck yourself. I'm not, no. I mean, that's the thing. I
Mhm.
think that, I I feel like that invitation was almost like divine. I'm like, why would he think I would? Then I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? He probably just invited everybody, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But I'm like, you know what? Maybe I do need to kind of expand my viewpoints and look at alternative, you know,
Hmm.
ways to view life.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody, I do think, and this is what I love, you know, this is one thing that I love, and I don't know that Brene Brown is the one that started this, but she's definitely the one that has promoted it is loudly enough for me to hear over and over again from her. It's just thinking that people are, if you look at everyone as just doing the best they can with what they know at the time,
Yeah.
then it just really changes. It just shifts your perspective.
Yeah.
That
We're all human and we're all doing the best
Mhm,
we can with
mhm,
what we have at all times.
yeah,
And I try to always go back to myself with that because I've not always been perfect. I'm never perfect, obviously, but I've always, throughout my journey, I've had my downs and my ups. And that's one thing I can say is that time of my life, I did the best that I could do with
right.
what I had. And I know now that I can do better today because I've experienced that.
Hmm.
And because I was opened up to listening to other people
Yeah,
and what they had to share with me.
yeah,
And I wasn't just going like, no, just kind of like what we want to do here. We want other people to hear us and to open up their eyes and their ears and their hearts about HIV and AIDS and the community and what's really the facts in that. And we're asking them to do it. So, of course, we want to be able to be like, we're willing to do it too in other aspects of our own lives.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the hit that I was getting. I was like, ooh, that is exactly
Yeah.
the hit that I was getting. Like, okay, we want to be heard. We want to represent
Yes.
those voices that we want to be heard. So what about the flip side? You know, and I think about, and again, it's not like we can never know why, and we can never know truly know the motives of other people. But I even think about the people that left signs and shitty notes and things like that in your yard, or whatever they did, right? What if
Yeah.
what if they were coming from the perspective of stay away from these people because we don't want you to die? Again, it's like ignorance. It
Yeah.
is it is just it is
Hmm.
ignorance, but they might have
Hmm.
been coming from a place of I just want to protect the community and the community should know
And that's true. It
because
could
we don't.
be.
Yeah, I mean, and it sucks.
Hmm.
It sucks
Yeah.
because some of us, and that's where I can get a little judgy. Some of us will, do things that are a little bit questionable, um, like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
But if you can take a step back and bring, come from that perspective of, okay, they're just doing the best they can with what they know at the time.
Hmm.
Take a breath.
Yeah.
It's not about you. Don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
making
It
it
has
making
to.
it very clear that it's personal.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, um, it's not up to us to give everyone else their lessons. Everyone has to get their lessons as they will, just as you and I have had
Yeah.
to through our own journeys about how we connect to those that we have lost. It's been trial and error. We've
Yeah.
had to figure out how that works for us now
Yeah.
and what it means to us now
Yeah.
and how we continue to grow and evolve from it, from
Hmm.
our experience,
Yeah.
and not focus on the tragic part of it because it's fucking tragic,
Hmm. Yeah.
but focus on the gifts that came of it. Greater awareness,
Yeah.
open eyes, open heart.
Passion.
Hmm.
Yeah. Definitely, my dad showed me that no matter what your circumstances are, You have the complete control on how you run your life. 100%. Does not matter what is thrown at you or what you go and get. You have control of your own life.
Wow. Perfect. That's perfect. Okay. Anything else you want to add? This has been a very heavy conversation, but I love it. I'm here for it, every bit of it.
Yeah. I just think that, we said earlier, like, maybe it's because I'm not in the community and that's why I'm not really hearing about it, but I'm not in the community of cancer and I'm hearing about it. So
that's
that, that is just something that I don't know if I have to get used to, or do I find a way to be like, hey, let's talk about it again? Or maybe I need to do some research and see exactly where it is and maybe just start talking about it again. Yeah. Because I'm sure the people in my life are like, well, you're not talking about it no more. Like, why am I not talking about it anymore? So maybe that's some work that I need to do within myself too, to see like, why am I not sharing my story anymore with people? It's definitely still my story. I have a huge transformation story about it. Why am I not sharing that part of it? Like, I'm sharing all my other bits and pieces, but why have I yet to share really that one? I've touched a little here and there, but I've never really focused on it. And why not? So maybe that's a piece that I can bring and I can start sharing with the world and, start maybe doing my own piece and getting it out there and seeing what stigmas are still there and letting people know they're not alone and things get better. And no matter what, like, they're not alone. And I think that is like a key piece, because so many people dealing with this, whether they're infected or affected, they feel alone.
Yes.
Especially if they're not part of the community, because they don't know how to be a part of the community. There are so many people out there that don't even know that there's a community to be a part of. But we're here to tell them, there is. And we welcome them, and the community welcomes them with open arms.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. You know what? I'm here with you on that. I am actually asking myself the same questions. And let's get loud, girl. I'm okay with it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I've been quiet for too long, only because it's easier for me. It's easier for me to not go there. But I'm good with whatever we can do to that story share. I'm calling this a story share. That's exactly what it was. It was absolutely authentic. We talked for 5 minutes and we started pressing record and just went with it. And I love it. I love you. I love your dad, everyone that has gone through this journey.
Thank you. We love you too.
Thank you so much. Okay. This is very different than anything I have done, because I didn't really introduce Jennifer as a coach who she helps or anything along those lines as I normally would. And that was intentional, because today I really wanted you to connect with the two of us as human beings who have had deeply moving experiences. Remember how I framed the way that I didn't want to address this alone? Did you catch how many times throughout this story share that Jennifer highlighted that no one who is living with this or who has lost someone to AIDS, who is infected or affected by AIDS, should be alone? Yeah, that part. That's why this episode is here for you, whenever or wherever you are. And I no longer believe it to be true that I lost my light when I lost my dad. I believe that his light lives on inside of me. I believe his spirit is a part of that nudge that connected me to Jennifer, that her dad's spirit is also involved. And that is where we drew the strength to bring this to you. If you are called to support the community as we are, Google is your friend, and I am certain that you will be able to find ways to get engaged and involved, however you may be called to do so. As always, please feel free to connect with me, and I would be honored to be a part of your journey, whether it is related to this topic or something else that you're having a hard time facing. I will drop my email address in the show notes, sending you love, light, and the deepest appreciation for hearing what we had to say today. Light up, shine on.